Hi everyone. If someone you care about is suffering from depression, it can be extremely difficult to see them struggle, and it's natural to want to help. Unfortunately, sometimes the things we say that are well-meaning and well-intended can actually make things worse for a person who's experiencing depression. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about some of the things that you might be tempted to say, but that you should avoid saying to someone who's experiencing depression. But before I get into that, just a couple of disclaimers to go over. I'm a registered psychologist in the province of British Columbia, Canada, and this video is for informational purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute or replacement for advice from your doctor or mental health professional. Now, with those things out of the way, let's start talking about what you shouldn't say to someone who's experiencing depression. Now, it can be really difficult to know what to say to someone who's struggling with depression, and it's really important to be sensitive and understanding. They're likely experiencing a lot of negative thinking and negative thoughts themselves, so you don't want to contribute even more to that negative dialogue that's going through their head. So here are some of the things to avoid saying to someone who's experiencing depression. The first is, just snap out of it. This is the tough love approach that encourages the person to will themselves out of their depression. However, depression is a serious medical condition that often requires treatment and professional intervention. It's not something that a person can simply snap out of. If they could, they would have already. It's all in your head. Oftentimes when people say this, they're trying to reason or rationalize with the depression itself, trying to point out to the person who's suffering from depression that the way that they're thinking and the way that they're interpreting things is wrong, and that's what's making them feel worse. And while this might be true, the problem is depression is a real and serious illness that affects a person's mood and overall functioning. For them, it's not all in their head, and it's not just a matter of thinking positively or trying harder. Other people have it worse. Now, while it's true that everyone's experiences are different, saying something like this can serve to invalidate the person's feelings and experiences and make them feel like their struggles and their depression isn't important. The reality is, for many people with depression, they often compare themselves to other people and get down on themselves and beat themselves up for being depressed when they see so many other people in the world who seemingly have bigger or more significant problems than they do. It's an unfair comparison. Just because someone else is experiencing something bad in their life, that doesn't invalidate the feelings and experiences of the person who's suffering from depression. You should try to exercise more, eat better, put on some makeup, dress nicely, go out and have fun, etc., etc., etc. While all of these things are true, making healthy lifestyle choices can certainly be beneficial for someone with depression. The problem is, the person with depression already knows these things. Most people with depression already know that they would probably feel better if they exercised more, or that they would probably feel better if they got more sleep or ate healthier. The problem with depression isn't one of not knowing what they should be doing. The problem is having the motivation and energy to do those things and make those changes that would make them feel better. So by telling them something that they've already probably told themselves multiple times, it's likely just going to make them feel even worse about themselves for not doing these things that they should be doing. It's reinforcing that negative dialogue that's already going on in their head. Have you tried just not being depressed? This one misses the point completely. Saying something like this implies that the person is choosing to be depressed. And in all of my years of working with people with depression, I've never yet met a person who really wanted to be depressed. It's not a choice, and it's not something that you can just try yourself out of. It's just a phase that you're going through. While it can be helpful to think that depression is just a temporary mood state that will resolve on its own, this isn't always the case. Depression isn't just something that emotionally dysregulated teenagers experience and eventually grow out of. By saying something like, it's just a phase, it can make the person with depression feel like you're invalidating what they're experiencing, or don't really understand that this isn't just a temporary state of sadness that's just going to go away. You should try to think more positively. While a positive attitude can certainly be helpful, it's not always possible for someone with depression to simply change their thoughts. Think more positively, or just think happy thoughts. One of the things that depression can do is it can affect a person's thinking patterns, and it can actually make it more difficult for the person suffering from depression to see or recognize positive aspects in their life. So by telling them that they should think more positively, you may be asking them to do something that they literally cannot do because of the depression. You should try to be more social. This is another one of those should statements. While social support is important for mental health, depression can sap a person's motivation and energy to engage with people socially. It may be hard for them to do something as seemingly simple as answering the phone or returning a text message. So by telling them that they should try to be more social, once again, you're telling them something that they already know and that they probably already beat themselves up for not doing. You're just trying to get attention. File this one in the category of failure of empathy. The vast majority of people who experience depression don't do it for attention or to get sympathy from other people. Rather, most of the time, people with depression try to hide what they're experiencing from other people due to feelings of guilt and shame and embarrassment, or a perception that others would think badly of them. This isn't an attention-seeking disorder. Depression typically doesn't involve the histrionics and outward displays you would expect in people seeking attention. You're still depressed? Shouldn't you be over it by now? Again, while I understand that it can be really difficult to see a loved one or someone you care about suffering from depression, especially if you don't understand why they're feeling that way, but telling them to get over it or putting a time frame on how long it's appropriate for them to feel depressed before they should just get over it, this simply is not possible, and it can contribute and add to those tremendous feelings of shame and guilt from the person suffering from depression, because they're probably also saying those things to themselves as well. And that's part of the depression, beating themselves up. And that's one of the main things I hope you understand from some of these things you shouldn't say to people who are experiencing depression. You may be tempted to say some of these things to a loved one who's suffering from depression, but there's a fairly good chance they've already told themselves these things. And it's these types of thoughts that point a finger of blame at the person who's suffering from depression. And that just makes them feel even worse and even more depressed. It's important to be supportive and understanding of someone with depression and listening to them without judging or trying to fix their problems. Simply being there and offering your support can be a powerful way to help someone who's struggling. You don't have to say the right thing. And sometimes the best way to support someone with depression is to just be there and not have to say anything at all. If you want to learn more ways of supporting a loved one with depression, I'd encourage you to take a look at this video. So That's all for today's video on things you shouldn't say to a loved one who's suffering from depression. As always, thank you for making it all the way to the end of this video, and I will see you in the next one.